Welcome back to the Progress City Radio Hour and part 2 of our Progress City Town Hall interview with former Imagineer and creative talent in his own right, Mr. Eddie Sotto. With me as always, Jeff Crawford. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing excellent. I really enjoyed part 1 of this. Eddie is a very interesting guy, so I'm excited for part 2.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. We're going to cover some more ground with Eddie, hear what he has to say, and maybe look at some of the issues facing our industry today and some viewer questions too. So let's see what he has to say, Mr. Eddie Sotto. I would imagine working at Disney during the so-called Disney decade was in a lot of ways the best of times and worst of times. You know, it seemed like the sky was the limit ideal-wise, but maybe a lot of things didn't wind up getting built. So there's kind of a mix there.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I felt like after Disneyland Paris, unfortunately, it was like coming back from a war that nobody believed in. And you kind of come home and, while you were there, I still have the congratulations, Michael, I have all the hoopla of opening it. And you come back to it not performing as they wanted it to perform, or they expected it to perform, or empty hotel rooms, and I would look at the guest numbers, and the guest satisfaction numbers were very, very high. I mean, incredibly high. Even if you compare the attendance first year of Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom to Disneyland Paris, it was, I believe, better than the Magic Kingdom of Walt Disney World. Remember, there's only one park at that time. So
Sure.
you want to be apples to apples. But at the same time, they were gun shy. Frank Wells passing away, Michael Eisner losing his yin and his yang, or his partner. These things were big blows at the management level. And there was, even Frank was still alive when Disneyland Paris, when he had to kind of look at how refinancing and fixing it. They didn't have that same gung-ho attitude and livid Imagineering like they used to. So I felt the pendulum. We all did. I know Tony did. It was a big blow to him because, Michael was kind of his partner in like, what's next, Tony? What are we doing next? And things kind of screeched to a halt there for a while.
Sure, they sure did. Well, this gives me a chance to ask about probably the biggest player in Disney at this time and for a long time, which is Michael Eisner. And so is someone, you and have had interactions with for decades now. So I just wondered if you could tell us a little about Michael and what he's like to work with.
Well, I was very fortunate. I came to the company in 1986. He and Jeffrey and Frank had just got there. So there was about a year of them revving the engines. And Disneyland Paris was the number one project on their docket. So they were involved, and you think of CEOs. CEOs are not always involved in lots of creative decisions, but Michael saw him as not the creator. He didn't have to put his fingerprints all over every single thing, but he did have a creative instinct. And Michael Eisner is a very well-read and well-educated man, much more than most Hollywood executives. He knows what he's doing. He reads scripts, he makes notes. He really can get into the depth of not just a typical film, but understanding why something doesn't work, or looking at it in a very with a critical eye at a 50,000 foot level and giving us notes. So he was also a fan of Imagineering. He loved Imagineering. And then he brings in Frank Wells. And remember, a lot of the mark of a great executive is who they attract. And bringing in Frank Wells and having Frank Wells there and him being able to work with Frank was a buccaneer of a businessman. He was doing the business, but he never wanted Michael's limelight. He left that to Michael. Michael was the creative force. And really, they formed a beautiful, beautiful team, and they worked so well together. And the one person that could tell Michael his idea was not a great idea was Frank Wells. Michael, Frank, let's do this, blah, blah, blah. And then Frank would say, well, Michael, no, I hate that. And then Michael would go, you don't understand, blah, blah. They would openly argue about these things.
Yeah.
And, they were free enough and so confident in what they were doing to do it with us there. They really made us feel partners. You could be in a restaurant. Remember, I wasn't the senior guy at the time. I was like a vice president level new guy, right? If you're in a restaurant, Michael would walk over if he saw you in a Hollywood restaurant. He'd walk over to say hello to you.
Hmm.
Michael Eisner really was a people person and wonderful with talent. So, but his creative instincts, I think, is really what drove him to do these things. And one of his great quotes was, I believe on Animal Kingdom, they kind of gave him this business result that sort of said, well, you could do it or not do it. And Michael Eisner's response, I was not in the meeting, but I heard this was, we can't afford not to do it.
Hmm.
See, that's the kind of mind you needed. Is someone said, well, we are Disney. We can't afford not to do this. We need to be innovating in this way. Was every idea he had a great idea? Well, no one's ideas are 100% great. But Michael, I feel, more than anyone, really made Imagineering feel like they were really a part of the studio process and the creative process. And so uh, I don't know, I really respected him. I think he was severely wounded and was never the same, and never had the same confidence once he had to think of it from strictly the shareholders' point of view. I think he was always in the court. He would say to us, he goes, well, look, I'm willing to go on a limb. I'm willing to take big risks, but it can't not possibly make its money back. I have a
Right.
fiduciary duty here. If it can somehow do it, he goes, and thank goodness Lion King can cover a multitude of sins. When we have big hits, they're blockbusters and they cover all those misses. But I'm willing to take some big bets all over the table here, but we can't do them all. Go
Right.
with me on this. But he was the man who, I wouldn't have got to do ABC Times Square Studio without Michael going, well, we're just going to give this to Eddie.
Yeah.
He's going to do this. And so he believed in the concept studio, and he's a wonderful guy. So, that's how I felt about him. And I really respect him as both an executive and a creative leader. But I think Bob Iger in his time too is the perfect guy when that pendulum swings another time. No pitcher can pitch 40 innings in a row. You pitch your
Right.
9, you get tired, you've given it your best, and you bring in a reliever or a different pitcher to pitch to a different batter. And the batters had changed at Disney. The world had changed at Disney. And Bob Iger was the perfect guy to come in at that moment. And look what he's been able to do. He never pretended to be the creative executive. But he attracted and acquired the creativity the company wanted at the time,
Right.
or
Absolutely.
needed at the time.
Uh,
Look at
new,
look at John Lasseter. Look how he developed John Lasseter. So there were good things in at every time. People ask me about Disney and go, "Well, Eddie, what about the company today?" And this, I'm like, "Well, I can tell you about the pendulum when I was being, ducking my head so it wouldn't hit me. You know,
mhm.
um, I know about that, but I like to have confidence as a shareholder and in the people running it. When they're running it."
Right. Well, and it's, it really was swinging when you were there, that pendulum. And, you think of 1994 as being such a turning point when, Eisner, lost Frank Wells. He had his heart attack. There was the management shuffle. There was Disney's America. It's like everything hit all at once. It was like a tidal wave of, one blow after another. And you can really see why it would make somebody gun shy. And, dealing with Michael Ovitz and all of that, it was really just a composite of things.
Yeah, and Michael Ovitz was never really absorbed or accepted into the I'm sure there's books about all this stuff, but Michael Ovitz, he came over to Imagineering, but his style was very, very different. He was very much the agent, and I think Michael very early on, could see that chemistry wasn't going to click. But it's funny, no one seems to remember this. When Michael Eisner was getting Michael Ovitz, everyone in Hollywood said it was the coup of the century
Oh
and
yeah,
he was the smartest guy on the planet Earth. And no one disagreed with that decision.
totally.
Okay. Then once things began to go south a little bit or things weren't meshing as they expected, then everyone becomes the armchair quarterback and says, well, what a bad decision. And he shouldn't have done this. But believe you me, at the time that was happening, no one could believe, oh, wow, how could he land Michael Ovitz? This is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, you're so right.
A
That is
Midas
absolutely
touch.
true.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned you were really into in this period incorporating interactivity and technology into the park experience long before, the modern day trend of that happening. You were really ahead of things. Of the things you can talk about, what's the most out there thing you pitched in this time?
Well, there were a lot of out there things. I mean, I did pitch this one thing called the Lights of Winter. And I had seen this product called the Hoberman Sphere. And if you Google that, it's a toy.
Hmm.
By the way, some toys need to stay in the toy store. You can't just put anything on a photocopier and make it an attraction. But there was this little sphere, and you'll see it in every science museum. It looks like a little ball. When you pull on it, it expands. It's like a series of
Sure.
little trusses. Well, I thought, man, if only you could expand this thing 80 feet tall. I mean, as big as a Disneyland castle, you could make this thing big. What if you could do that? And I investigated the inventor who'd already gone down this course, doing shade structures, putting canvas on these trusses and having it like living trusses, and they looked alive. I
Ooh.
thought, wow, if we could have this sphere small in the hub of Tokyo Disneyland, and then music begins to play, and we embed the thing in strobe lights, and it gets bigger and bigger and larger and larger. And then you can see through it. And there's fog and smoke and music, and we can project with it and do all this stuff. This would be, it could take the place of putting all those erectors set down Main Street, or would take the place of a lot of things that I thought were, and a lot of in Japan, by the way, they'd already done, other attractions had done these winter lights kind of things. And that's all Oriental and Company wanted, was low scale lights in the hub. And I probably should have just listened to them and given them a gorgeous version of that and walked away. But unfortunately, it's kind of like every prisoner, if you leave the key too close to the cell, they're going to spend all night trying to get that key. So
Right.
I wanted to escape so bad, and I'm just driven to do new things. So I thought, well, let's do the thing, and I pretty much tried to ram it down their throat. They didn't want it. I mean, they liked it, and I don't even feel bad talking about it, because I think there was probably months of cranes just trying to get this thing into the park prior to this, during the summer season. And of course the whole park's on a landfill, so this ball would have probably just punched a hole through the hub and kept sinking all the way down to the core of the earth or something. I don't know. But that was probably the most outlandish thing. But we had the most beautiful videos, and Hoberman worked with us. This guy was a genius, and he engineered it. And I mean, just in a preliminary way. We didn't go that
Yeah,
far. But it was a gorgeous presentation. I mean, if somebody ever did do that, it could be pretty cool. At least I think it would be pretty cool.
it's a
But
cool idea.
at
Yeah.
least it would save that. But that was one of the ones that just kind of went down in flames, in kind of in a flaming ball of winter.
Well, sometimes those are the most fun ones, the ones that go down in flames.
So
But
I would say that was fairly outrageous. I mean, I was always searching patents and looking for things that were in other technologies, audio technologies, trying to do a theater of the future. I still do this today. I'm always looking to apply technologies from one world to another, take experiential sensory experiences, and look at interfaces, human interfaces, to put audio inside your mind or put sound. And I'm always looking to, even today, very much so. I'm working on a project now, even today, that involves neuroscience. So,
uh,
yeah, no, we're going to right now a neuroscience project. So, uh, I feel like imagination doesn't have any boundaries. We should always keep looking. There was a day when a movie theater where people are all going to sit with sticky floors and popcorn in the dark and look at this wall with a light projected on it was like an outlandish idea.
right.
You mean I'm going to be in the dark between two perfect strangers for 3 hours? Yes. And you will consent to do it.
And you'll pay to do it.
And you'll pay to do it. And you'll even go back again, and there'll be a little poster that'll reassure you it'll be okay if you go inside. So I'm thinking there's always that next thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, from a very early age, you wanted to be an Imagineer. I know a little bit what that's like. So I can only imagine how hard it was to leave Imagineering, which begs the question, and this is something you've touched a little on. Why does someone leave Imagineering?
Well, people usually leave companies for two reasons. One, because of the work or because of the people they work for. It's either you leave the management or the product, or you
Mm,
like, what the job is. And I had a little bit of both, but primarily, as an artist or designer, my thirst has always been what's next. And I want to create. I want to do that next thing. So when I told you about the free ranging ride system, no one got it. Nobody wanted to even, here you have to have funding for this concept studio. I could almost see the funding of the studio being cut in half or something. Things were very, very austere. I mean, the pendulum kind of looked like a knife or an axe.
yeah. The
It's like
pit and the pendulum.
I was in the wrong fun house. So I'm like going, oh, this doesn't look too good here. So I could see that. I could see that this austerity was affecting the creative process. So to me, that was like, one big piece of it. So that was a part of it. But the other one is this desire to always learn new things and create. And I began writing television shows and creating TV shows and selling them. I had a lot of other little things that, apart from my Imagineering contract, that it looked like I could do. I was getting some moderate success in that, being forced into the Writers Guild to do a television series, getting my
Mm,
series optioned at ABC. So I had some ideas that were beginning to get traction. But of course, the TV business is very volatile. I mean, the minute
yeah.
the executive that said yes gets fired 10 minutes from saying yes, they throw your stuff away and start over. I mean, TV is very risky. But at any rate, I had a lot of shiny nickels floating around out there. And at the time, I was a senior vice president. So I had tremendous benefits and every reason. And even another Imagineer goes, look, why would you go? You could do this forever. You could just sit here. We're like medical specialists. We do this specialized thing. We could just keep doing that. And I go, well, I don't want
Right.
to I don't want to keep doing anything. I want to move forward. I want to do new things all the time. I just don't feel that appetite. I tried to stay on as working on kind of as the chief creative officer of Disney's online world, but that was in
Mm,
too much of its early stages to even entertain experimentation. They were doing flash games.
yeah.
Bejeweled was an exciting idea back then. So it's kind of like, okay, I don't see that happening. So I had some people from the internet came and said, Eddie, how about chief creative officer at sort of like a brand new internet startup where you can be like a television executive, but creating online programming and learning how to produce and direct episodic online content at really good budgets. And I thought, you know what, that in the future, how many customers are there for rides, Universal and Disney, especially at the scale that my reputation's taken me to, which is super expensive.
Hmm.
So I thought, well, it's hard to go backwards. So I thought, well, okay. And my wife is going to have twins. Oh boy. Great. Love that. How do you now extend your career for another 20 years? You know, well, it's learning new tricks. This dog needs to not rely on his past, but go out and learn new tricks, design restaurants, design shopping centers, create internet content. I need to reimagine myself because there's no Frank Lloyd Wright of the architecture of this new thing called the internet yet. I need to learn how to tell stories that people touch with their finger and click on. That's what I need to understand. This world of content, how many more rides are they going to build? They're not building them right now. I'm just giving you my mental conversations.
Sure.
So I
Yeah.
opted to take that risk, and risks, they have rewards. I've learned a lot, and done a lot. I've done a tremendous amount of things since I've left, and I'm actually prouder of some of that work than even some of the Disney work. So I feel like it was a good experience, but it has risk. It has ups and downs. It's a roller coaster, you know?
Well, so you leave Disney, and I just love to hear a little perspective about, how you find the balance between the lure of Imagineering versus charting your own path, and how, finding that through the years has been rewarding for you.
I feel like so many people have been so fantastic to me I think if you help others, they help you. I think if you're open and you just have an open, like this guy will try anything, look on your face and you work hard, then others will want to see you succeed. They're going to want to see that idea get built. And, it takes a team. So it's not always my idea either. It's many ideas. It's ideas that evolve and change. It's clay. And so to me, and when I wrote my resignation, I said, I will always be an Imagineer. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Disney does not own the ethic of being an Imagineer. An Imagineer takes things that look impossible and says, I think we can do that. And the reason it hasn't been done yet is the right people haven't been put around the right table to make it happen. So with this COVID thing, and I won't get into that yet, but I feel like we want to aim higher. I'm not going to give into normalizing masks in theme parks forever. Fine, you can have a mask today, but I look forward to the day when there's no mask, because it's not just because of a vaccine. It's creating a future-proof world where people are going to be able to walk in and feel like they're at the cleanest and the safest place on earth, where people look at other people and are not wary of them. That doesn't help human culture. Where you go, you know what? I'm willing to look at that stranger and say, wasn't that cool? That's the coolest firework I've ever seen in my life. What do you think? And
Mm-hmm.
where people can share things. That's what you have to have, is
Sure.
this shared experience. So as an Imagineer, I just point that process and attitude toward anything in my path, whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
faith, or whether it's a problem, or whether it's a relationship, or anything like that. You'd say, well, wait a minute, why can't several of us, why is this impossible now? It's because nobody said we're going to treat it as a hurdle instead of an obstacle that's just going to sit there, you know?
Right, right.
Why does it have to be that way? I mean, the old story of an Imagineer was, how many Imagineers does it take to change a light bulb? Does it have to be a light bulb? That's what the Imagineer supposedly says. Well, right. So people go, well, how many Imagineers does it take to do a COVID compliant ride? And I says, well, I don't know, but why does it have to be a COVID compliant ride? Why don't we solve the COVID and create a screening process where people come in and they don't have a disease like they do at the airport, where you're not a terrorist? They didn't go, how do we make a bomb proof? They don't make planes that are bomb proof where the bomb goes off in the plane, right? Oh,
Right.
look, it doesn't
Right,
crash.
right, right.
No, you don't build bomb proof partitions inside the airplane. You solve it at the beginning. Somebody asked me about that once. I said, well, you don't make a bigger ashtray for a chain smoker. You ask them why they smoke. You get inside the problem and you make them a happy person, and maybe they don't want to smoke anymore. You figure out why they're smoking in the first place. They're troubled about something. If you can make them happy, they'll forget about that, or they'll conquer it, or have the will to make that change. So to me, Imagineering is I don't want to say it's a way of life, but it's kind of a way you approach things, and you look at others. You don't look at yourself as the way to solve a problem. You look at a team and you say, well, how do I get the best minds around this?
Mm.
How do I get the best talent around this? And you think of the biggest problems that people have solved. Isn't it true? It's about doing that. I mean, people want to believe that Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or any of these guys are the end all. Well, they're not. They're pitchmen.
Yeah.
Okay. And people either follow them and say, you know what, I believe in that dream. I get up because I want to put someone on the moon, or I want to see an electric car, or whatever it is, or I want to see, like, my favorite thing about Disney was just sitting on a bench and watching other people use the thing our group worked on and say, well,
Sure.
is that what I thought it was going to be? Or, ooh, nobody listens to that upstairs window thing, but boy, do they sure like touching that little apple and watching it go off, or whatever it is that they see,
Right.
because we can't know it all,
Well, you touch on something that's just essential, is the collaboration and the team aspect. And you've worked with so many remarkable people in your career. I was wondering if you had a few that stood out to you for their, influence or goodness to you, or
Well, I mean, I've already mentioned many of those who saw, an uneducated person that had talent. I think it is important to mention talent, because sometimes technique does not invent an attraction, or sometimes, but talent, having a certain amount of talent, but talent can also be undeveloped. It could be rough, um, or also perseverance or endurance. Those are also talents. People that can endure to do that. And then, so I do thank people like Tony, or Gary Goddard, or just people along the way, Rick Campbell posthumously, or different ones. I thank my parents. You know, I asked my dad once. I said, Dad, how do you make your decisions in life? And he goes, well, you know, uh, my best decisions were made for me. I
Hmm.
go, you mean mom made
Hmm.
all the decisions? He goes, no, mom didn't make all the decisions. I'm telling you that I lost my job at one time, or life happens to you, and I tend to think a good friend of mine, a very good friend, is a legendary surfer. And you talk about the perfect wave. Well, you don't make those waves. The waves come, like in a surf contest, and you do the best with the waves you're given, and you have endurance, or you have patience, and all those qualities. you know it's like that, I think. And so when I think of different individuals, Herb Ryman was an influence on me. Then there's people that I just enjoyed, that I don't think got enough credit, like Ed Johnson, I worked with, who was a tremendous friend. But every time I was doubting doing it right, he came from the old school of Imagineering, or WED, and he worked in the model shop. And he's like, Eddie, he's the other Ed, he calls himself. He says, look, that's janky. They're not doing it right. Do it right. Hold out don't settle, do it right. And so there were times I wanted to settle, and people told me not to, or just different ones that were really wonderful. Herb Ryman, of course, was a great influence on me, as a person that said you need to research and travel. Those things were positive. Gary Goddard, in his sense of entertainment or theater, not discounting it, not being all about the design, always focusing on that. So many, even John Hench. But then there's talents that were always there to do great things. Chris Runko, I think, is one of the great Imagineers. You would know him from Typhoon Lagoon, but the people that really carry the water in a lot of these attractions that were there, that were very positive influences, um, just different ones that I look at. I guess the funny thing is, everybody has good qualities and qualities that are not as good. So I always look for
Sure.
the good in any other person I work with, and say, how can I copy that aspect of it? Because none of us are 100% strong. I hope I have a couple good
Right.
qualities that
Right.
people want to emulate, and hopefully they don't emulate my bad qualities, or my weaknesses, I should say. They're not bad qualities, they're just weaknesses people have, you know.
Right. Well, I'm curious. You have all kinds of range of projects that you work on, and some have got to be super exciting. Some maybe not that exciting. I mean, how do you find an appeal in the projects you take on, in all the variants that they may be? What motivates you?
Hard fun. Alan Kay made up that. Alan Kay is like one of the fathers of the personal computer from Xerox PARC. I think he actually named it personal computer.
Mm.
I think he's one of the inventors, if not the inventor of the mouse. I mean, all these things that happened in Xerox PARC back even before Steve Jobs. And he called it hard fun. It's kind of like people that are attracted to math. And I guess I'm attracted to difficult challenges. I don't like design competitions, because I feel like they're really not fair. They're very subjective, committee oriented. I don't even enter design competitions, things like that. But I do like getting hired to solve for people, for other clients, and things like this. And so the harder the fun, the more drawn I am to it. And so I also just love the opportunities to design beautiful things that. So I've been very fortunate. Our company's got to work with Ferrari, or Aston Martin, or Embraer aircraft, and just to kind of create beautiful things. I guess if I was born many years ago, I'd want to be the guy that was the clockmaker in the village, that isn't materialistic in the way I want an Aston Martin, but I'd sure like to work on one, or design the showroom like we do. I work with them, you know, to do things like that are really cool and really beautiful, and get to do things. I like to watch others enjoy them. So I guess I like being the guy to make things for others or design things that people enjoy. Um, that's exciting to me, and I like all fields. I'm producing a record right now. I have no business doing that, but I
Oh,
want to do it. I just want to do what I haven't done, and I feel like I could add something. As long as I could add something to it from another experience or bring something to it, I feel like every job gets me the next job too. It's
right,
like,
right.
had I not done this one project, I wouldn't have ended up doing an airplane project. Or if I hadn't done one automotive job, it wouldn't have got me the other automotive job, or what have you. So literally, it's the journey is the destination. You
Hmm.
know.
That's the truth.
Sure. At some point, I'm gonna have to hear more about this record you're producing. But clearly, you've done all kinds of different projects. Do you have a project that, if you could get it off the ground, do you know, like a dream project, something in mind that you would like to do that you haven't done yet?
Well, I'm kind of working on it now, so I'm hoping it happens.
Okay.
Um,
We'll
and
cross fingers for that.
Well, I'm working with
Yeah.
Virgin Galactic. That's all I have to say. So if I had to pick the Disney of aerospace, that would be it. And of course, they just brought in my good friend Joe Rohde to
Mm.
be a part of
Hmm.
that project, or just the whole endeavor. I'll just say an endeavor. So that's exciting. I would say the other kind of thing, frankly, is if somehow this COVID screening, which is a civilization level technology that can scan you not just for COVID-19, but with a breathalyzer, tell you if you had any other variant or other virus, kind of disease, kind of virus, not disease, virus. Do you have any idea the effect on the world that would have, and just identifying to screen people coming in out of countries or screen people going to events and doing things that would help the medical science? So my part of that would be making it fun, making it seamless, making it invisible as part of an
Right.
experience, not a process where somebody goes, hey, I just won the World Series. I'm going to swab my nose and go to Disney World. No, I think that's just offensive. How do you do it in a way where no one even knows that it's happening to you? So the technology is there. It's not to the finish line yet, but it's very, very close. It's laboratory close, but it has to work on average people in the field reliably. It's the difference between Bob Gurr and a bobsled and a finished Matterhorn. I mean, yeah, there's proof of concept, but there's a road there. And being an Imagineer, I know guest safety is beyond, number one. So anyway, that to me, that's the kind of a dream project, to see something that has, kind of an impact that would help people get back to work and do things.
Right.
But I don't know. Aerospace is exciting. Automobiles. I've always wanted to do a car, but these things are highly regulated and they take years. But working on something like that would be fun, even if it's to be Ed Big Daddy Roth of my own generation, who was a
Sure.
car customizing pioneer.
Hmm.
I've always wanted to do custom vehicles, like the Eddie Sotto version of a autonomous car, and not have it look like everybody else's autonomous car. It would have to be something that makes a difference and is fun.
Yeah. Well, as a car guy, you've certainly gotten to do some fun stuff with these really, really nice brands. That has to have been exciting.
Well, I do want to finish the Sky Yacht One project or the Sky Ranch project, and those are award-winning designs that are out there that have yet to be built in a particular aircraft. So I'd love to interpret a classic yacht or classic luxury design into some interesting form like that. We did a custom Rolls Royce to complement it, just to show the potential of what could happen. Found vendors to build it and everything. So, but I would love to do some kind of a really interesting, Sato edition custom car. That would be,
I could
and
see
then
it.
not it's not to be famous or anything like that. I just want to do it to see it get made. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
why you light
Yeah.
fireworks. You just want to watch them blow up.
To see what
You know,
happens. Right.
you just kind of go, can I light that firework, please, please? I just want to light it. I want to watch it blow up and do things. Plus, you end up meeting the smartest people in every one of these businesses, you go in to meet like the greatest engineers, the smartest people. And
Mhm.
that's another addiction of mine, is just meeting really interesting actors, meeting, interesting directors, interesting production designers. I learn from all those people. I take a little piece of that,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, you mentioned this record that you're working on, and I think you've mentioned that online. Is there anything you'd like to tease to get people revved up for this?
Well, I would like to tease one little thing. One minor thing is this. I always thought that the Space Mountain music, as much as Dick Dale worked on it, he just played some licks. And Aaron Richard did a great job of producing it and so forth. But I've always wanted that chainsaw guitar that when you saw Dick play live went right through your gut, because he used aircraft cables for his guitar strings. Well, the only other
Oh,
guitarist I know that did that was Laramie Dean, who traveled with Dale, toured with Dale, and headlined with Dale, who's literally today's preeminent guitar king of surf. This guy plays fantastic. And so we made friends, and I said, I want to redo Carnival of the Animals, public domain song. Take that song. What would you do with it? What if we could get, what if we can get Marky Ramone to play the drums? What if we could get a dream team of surf punk into a room and all do the voice? We have ignition, but Ignite escape from Space Mountain. Make this the surf punk limited edition vinyl romp version of that track, and just do it as a tribute, kind of a fan song. And I mean, I'm not taking any Disney soundtrack things out of it. I'm just making our own version called Escape from Space Mountain or Surf Mountain or something. But we're building it and we're doing it. And we've already recorded most of it, and we're polishing it and just taking our time and having fun. But everything we couldn't do in the ride, and frankly, maybe we'll do a cut down edit that's just long enough for you to play it on your headphones in
right,
there.
right.
But how fun would that be? But I just wanted to do it. I don't, and Laramie just said, "Oh man, I would just love to do that. Let me learn how to do that. But I've got a few licks that have not been in the ride. I want to do that." I go, "Fine. We're not here to copy it. We're here to have fun with it.
That's
Let's take
great.
the ride that the ride never had." And I would like to be known for just having some fun, and as Walt Disney told Herb Ryman, just do something people will like.
Yeah,
Just do,
it's yeah, it's
just do
as easy as
something
that.
everyone will like. And so, wouldn't it be nice to do that?
Before we wrap up, I wanted to look to the future. I think industry is at a real crossroads. I think it was even before the pandemic. So I wanted to throw out a few issues that themed entertainment is kind of wrestling with today, and just get a quick take from you about how you would like to deal with them, or how you think they should be dealt with. One is incorporation of intellectual property. This has become almost mandatory to get any project off the ground these days, anywhere really. And do you have any thoughts on how to effectively deal with that?
I think the biggest challenge is boring the designer.
Mm,
Like if I was there, I wouldn't. I mean, like Winnie the Pooh, the only way to do that is to take the ride system and everything else over the moon. So it's experiencing the story even better than the movie. This is the thing. Movies are quick cuts. I mean, it's nothing but smash cutting like in a Marvel film, right?
hmm
All that action. You can never experience that in a ride like you can in a film. So the trick with intellectual property, because basically rides are tracking shots, they're dolly shots. You're driving through at a particular distance all this stuff, unless you're in a motion-based theater. It's the closest thing to the editing of a film. But even then, there's a logic that you're in a vehicle and you're not really smash cutting. So there's some issues with that. Uh, and I feel as a designer that's very, very challenging. So I think it's how you do it is my answer. I'm not so offended by the intellectual property being forced on you, is the freedom to interpret and expand. Because you know if movies are real life with the boring parts cut out, rides are movies with the boring parts cut out.
Yeah.
So Mr. Toad is Grand Theft Auto, and you go to hell, so to speak, right? I mean,
Right.
and it's not all of Wind in the Willows. And the Little Mermaid ride is like a book report, right? Now that's
Right.
IP. So that's IP treated like, oh, we need to tell you what you saw in the movie all over again
Right.
to
Right. Yeah.
satisfy you. Well, I don't know that that does. Winnie the Pooh is literally just, an adventure through his world. So you want to be able to take that property and not let the studio that owns it, force you into doing a book report. I think it can be successful if you said, I want to fly like Iron Man. I've always wished I could be in the suit and fly and do that because I can't do that in the movie. Okay, boom, give me that ride. And it's like the rocket jets, but you're in a suit. Okay. That could even satisfy it without being some big show where we have to meet Gwyneth Paltrow and then we have to go do this and we have to check off all these boxes.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
bore the guest and don't bore the designer. Now, I do feel like there's room for history-based attractions or premise-based attractions. If you create a land that's a premise, why not expand on the premise of that land? The city of New York has a buggy ride, has a Surrey ride through Central Park.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's no IP with that. It's the
Right.
IP is New York, and you're going to experience your own story. We're not going to like spoon feed you every single little thing that you're doing, like the Rivers of America does. Oh, let's hear about the deer. You're going to get to have the freedom to finish the ride in your mind. It's going to be your world. Let's don't just beat up the guest and handcuff them into the movie. Let's let them have an adventure. That's where the fun is. Impressionist paintings do that. You look at the painting and they just give you the light and the shadow and you make up what the people are thinking.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what good actors do. They just stare off camera and you're like, I wonder, I'm going to think what I think he's thinking. And that's what makes him a good actor is because your thoughts are projected on the actor's blank stare, right? Oh, he's so good. Look at that. He's thinking exactly what I'm thinking.
You're right.
Good designers don't finish the whole thing. Don't let the IP force you into doing like the Galaxy's Edge thing or something like this where, I love the Galaxy's Edge, but if you prescribe every little detail, the guests can't role play themselves. Let them have one hand on the steering wheel.
That's
That's my
very
advice.
interesting. Yeah. Well, it's the difference between a book report, kind of what Walt did, which is like give you a canvas through which to go be David Crockett. It's like if you just want to go be David Crockett and do the things that David Crockett did, you had Frontierland to go mess around in and find your own sort of adventure.
Wasn't Tom Sawyer Island at its best when you could go with your friends and just run around those caves and spy on each other? And as a little boy, that's all I did. I role played in those lands.
Yeah.
I didn't feel shortchanged because I didn't read the entire story of how a lightning bolt hit the lookout tree and formed three little extra, three little springs of water that sprung and separated down. Okay, that's good to have, and you should have that. And if you want to drill for it, go drill for it. But it's like letting a drawing breathe. If you detail every leaf on the tree, it's a boring drawing. Let's let the drawing open up like a wine and let the wine breathe and let your mind take the glass of wine and let it open up in your head.
Right.
That's what great things do.
Another one of the issues that the industry is kind of facing today is a lot of cultural changes in how attractions are viewed. We've seen this happen recently with Jungle Cruise. And any thoughts on how designers should deal with that? With I guess you could say legacy attractions in a changing world.
Sure. Well, I feel like no one ever faults you if you make the scene better. If
Mm.
you're going to take something out, if you're going to take out the auction scene of the Pirates of the Caribbean, and you say, well, it's an auction scene, I have to find, and we're going to take this out and that out. We're going to do this with the auction scene, that with it. Well, that auction scene was created for a punchline. So it's sort of like me telling you a joke all over again and go, well, you can't tell the joke and use that punchline. You're just going to have to write a different punchline for the exact same series of events.
Yeah.
Well, not every joke plays, take my wife, please, doesn't play the same if you can't say the word please. You say, take my wife? I don't know. Take my wife, cheeseburger, or take my wife differently. Sometimes you need to either redo the scene and admit to yourself, say, well, you know what? The auction just doesn't work anymore. We're going to not have an auction. we're going to come up with the funnest thing we've ever come up with. And it's going to be a gunfight going on here. And the pirates are shooting each other and it's just barely going over your head. We're going to reimagine the whole thing. And by the way, there have been scenes that have been reimagined. Some scenes, I guess, short answer, can be adapted better than others. Other things need to be reimagined,
Mm.
to address that attraction in a new way. But why not just improve it? I mean, there was no politically correct reason to change the treehouse, I don't think, other than maybe ADA codes or something, I don't know, into the Tarzan idea. It was just revised to that to be more relevant. Aladdin's Oasis was the answer for a while to the Tahitian Terrace because they were going to close it because they didn't have enough people going to it. The tiki craze had not kicked in yet. So that was actually a dying restaurant. And operations goes, we want to save money and close it. I got criticized because I was behind the Aladdin's Oasis concept, the magic, close-up magic restaurant with a show in it. And it pretty much closed because it was too expensive, not because nobody liked it, you know. And you go, well, okay, so we're going to renovate it. We're just going to make it more relevant. Or so to me, this is a case of relevance in a relevant world. And there are ways of doing it, but not every joke can be retold, or you can't always put a Band-Aid on something. And then I think people go, oh, I'm reminded that used to be this auction scene.
Yeah.
See, sometimes if you don't go far enough and you put a Band-Aid on it, and people are like, oh, honey, you remember when it had this in it? And the redhead I remember that.
Right.
So why not just change it? People go, oh my goodness, the coolest thing, you go around that bend, you're not going to believe what you're going to see there. It's so great. Because if you really can't improve it, why remind people of the thing that you're trying to change?
Right. That's a really interesting way to put it.
Well, yeah, you really don't move forward. Sometimes you need plastic surgery versus a Band-Aid.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. One last topic has been the integration of mobile technology into the park experience. Now you plan your vacation and even proceed from one experience to the next using your phone. Do you think there are perils in tethering people too tightly to their devices, or perils in overplanning things even?
Boy, is that a good question. The answer is yes. I think there are, it's funny, perils. One man's peril is another man's app. I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like the people that are on their phone and are the generation that are doing every single thing on their phone. The theme park only exists for them to catalog experiences to post for an 8-hour period.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Oh, how can basically they're walking into a back lot for their Instagram account. And they're like, okay, no. I mean, you're laughing because it's kind of true. It's kind of like, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to buy the $17 Orange Bird sipper because you're going to buy it? Good. I'll post yours.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're looking at post-worthy stuff. And so there's that. There's people involving you. And I would say, kind of like the previous question, if you can make the involvement seamless or additive, and one of my challenges, you ask about dream projects, and we've got 2 of them going now, is to make technology social. I would rather take you from the isolation of you looking down at your phone into an AI or multi-user shared experience, because I don't want to take you away from mom and dad in the line. I would rather have something that unifies it. So an example of this is the game that puts a trivia word on your forehead and you hold it up and 3 people do something in line. And now the phone is involving everyone instead of siloing everyone. And so social technology to me is the holy grail. And we're developing some of those right this minute, and we're testing them. We're not even just talking about, we're testing them. Actually, we sneak into parks and test them and sneak back out again. And but our multi-user technology that we're developing allows hundreds of thousands of people without the thing crashing. Pokemon Go crashes. A lot of these things, when they're mass multi-user, crash. You can only maybe go up to about 100 people at once. We're doing mass multi-user experiences, mass things. So maybe you're not even looking at your screen. It's involving you. I do feel like serendipity is the endangered species of theme parks. And limited capacity parks without fast passes is showing the public all over again how fabulous it is to go, hey, Jeff, Michael, let's Let's just go on that right now. When's the last time you went on the guilty pleasure is the Storybook Land canal boats? It looks like idiots and sit on those little canal boats, and look and point at the little, how nicely they did the hinges on those buildings, let's just geek out on the canal boats because there's no line or that. I feel like that serendipity is what I grew up with and I miss it. I'm not like, let's go run to every ride. It sort of ruins it for me to go 9:42 p.m. You know what that is? Finish that $42 steak at the Blue Bayou because it got 4 minutes to get over to this line.
Yeah.
Okay, $42. This stuff is not cheap. I kind of want to enjoy it when I want to enjoy it. Now, I do think technology is going to get to the point, and I'd like to be a part of that, where it's fluid. In other words, the app is helping you, but it's not running you. In other words, you can manage the app and the system is so liquid and you know how many guests are everywhere that it is liquid enough for you to still have a perceived sense of one hand on the wheel. You're not being dragged around by this thing. You can just go and do stuff. And you're like, oh, well, the app is telling me, or I'm looking at it anyway because I'm posting this, but it's reminding me of this other thing. Oh, I mean, for some people, it is about that. It's only about that. And they love it. They love beating their friends with the fast pass and having it. And unfortunately, the queues that are, millions and millions of dollars get thrown away by people racing through them as being part of a fast pass group. So Indiana Jones, you run through it to get to the car, or other attractions. So, anyway.
Yeah, no,
I'm working on it. I'm working
Yeah.
on it. I feel like it's here to stay. It's where it's the momentum. You better get on the train or get off. But you're not going to ban devices. You better find a way to mobilize. But I even think on Galaxy's Edge, where you're photographing every crate for the fun of it, if it's fun, you're holding the line up. These things are not conceived right yet. I mean, you're holding the line up. I go and do these to see if they really work. And literally people are waiting behind you and you feel pressured because you got to basically, take a picture of a QR code on a box.
Right.
And then there's dialogue. Okay, Commander, is that the right one? Meanwhile, all these people are waiting behind you and you're reading it. Come on, let me just collect it and go. I get it. Yeah. So, it's in its infancy, I guess is the kind way to say it. And we got great people working on this, but it's kind of in its infancy.
But I think exciting potential there. And like you said, you're not going to get rid of devices. It's kind of the Walt thing of, if the people make a path, you better put a path there through the grass,
Yes.
Because
brilliant, Michael. That's exactly right. And the next path is glasses. It's not far off. So the looking down, the heads up aspect of this is really the new horizon. So you're wearing your sunglasses, you're out there. And frankly, I think the information that's most valuable is like how many minutes until your food is ready. I would rather know that on my phone and glasses, like, at the snack bar or whatever versus, some other information.
Yeah, news you can use. Well, one last thing along these lines. I just wanted to ask, what are a couple of things in the theme park designer vernacular, I guess you could say? What are a couple of things you'd like to stamp out? What are a couple of things you'd like to encourage?
I would like to encourage people to think further out and to push the envelope, of course, to look for new ways to do things. For frankly, the things I would stamp out, I guess I would want to stamp out the denial of normalizing viruses and COVID and all this into the theme park and just accepting status quo of any kind and saying aim higher to create and push technology and push the medical profession, because medical profession is usually behind science. It's a needs-based thing. I mean, why is the cold not solved yet?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. It seems like we sure got vaccines kind of quick this round. Somebody was really busy and they did a great job. So, how can we elevate that? I guess I would want to stamp out anything that's in the barrier of great shared experiences. And I think everything that we're enduring right now. And we have to right now. I understand. I'm not an unmasker type person saying, let's do something unsafe. I'm just saying Walt Disney would say, just like George Lucas wouldn't let you put masks in the films or have distanced people with lightsabers, they're, you're not, we're not making that movie. I'm making the movie I want to make. Well, I feel the same way. We're making the theme park we want to make. We just want to make it safe enough for people to enjoy again. And I think I want to see hugs on parents and kids and hugging characters and all that.
All right. Well, one last thing. We like to throw open the floor, I guess you could say, to some of our Patreon subscribers when we're going to do one of these and see if the people out there have anything they'd like to know about. So we have 2 questions from Ellen, who sent in questions this month.
Wow.
Yeah. She first wanted to compliment you on your presentation on Herb Ryman that you did for the Family Museum, the Walt Disney Family Museum.
Thank you, Ellen.
That was a fun time. Her first question is, when renovating or enhancing classic Disneyland experiences, did you think of, and she mentions some of the experiences at Disneyland, did you think of projects as needing a balance between nostalgic and familiar and forward thinking, or would you say the process of looking to create something of quality allowed that balance to happen organically?
That's an incredibly good question, but this is not the time or place. No, I'm just kidding. No, did she
We're
cite a
out of time.
particular? It's hard for me to react to that. If you had a specific attraction, that would be helpful.
Well, she mentions Main Street and Adventureland.
Okay, let's just take both, or I'll take Adventureland because I've talked too much about Main Street. So the redo of Adventureland in the 1990s, where we redid the Jungle Cruise dock and all those kind of things. I really wanted to err on the side of nostalgia and 40s music and Indiana Jones, and kind of like Main Street, turn the clock forward enough to be a little more relevant. So you do hear big band music and things like that. And it's much more of that, even though it's really not the period of World War II, it's the romance of the late 30s, early 40s, the golden age of Hollywood. So when you're on the Jungle Cruise dock, all the music, and I chose every song that plays on that dock, is romantic. It's from the 40s. And I didn't, some of it doesn't really obey the exact year of Indiana Jones. I think Someone Rockin' My Dreamboat by the Mills Brothers or Dorothy Lamore's Moon over Manakura is a little later. So you cheat a little bit and you want to err on the side of that. I cheated using the iconography or the interior of the House of Blues for the South Sea Traders. Ellen Guevara did that interior. And we used reference from that as saying, let's take all the old wood and stencil it and give it a fantasy look. Rolly Crump, when he originally did those interiors, it was very much of a fantasy of faraway places versus slaving to a literal photograph of a particular environment. It's a pastiche. I mean, you have Shrunken Ed in there, for goodness sake, or you've got Aladdin's other genie or a penny pinching elephant. So you're not really building a movie set as much as you're embracing faraway places. And the other challenge is that block of buildings of Adventureland starts at Indiana Jones, goes through British colonial architecture of the Jungle Cruise dock, which was the nostalgia of the original dock, which is French and British colonialism, and then ends with the sort of adobe mud feeling of the Middle East, which is Aladdin's Oasis and the Adventureland Bazaar. So it was very hard to mirror in a city street or anything like that with a Jungle Cruise dock that's literally the length of a block. How do you mirror all those styles? So we had to be very flexible. So hopefully that gives you a sense of, I tried to use nostalgia where it counts and go to the reach to the audience a little bit, and then use real historic details everywhere I could for literally the colonial of the dock, using French, using literal a whole infirmary and bone saws and everything to communicate the idea that you could die here and that the jungle is a danger. We even had the dock sinking. So nature was destroying the dock because you're on the edge of, of danger and excitement. So the jungle was literally clawing its way through the building. So there was lots of, a lot of thought that went into those things.
Her other question is, whose name and work within the world of Imagineering do you think more Disney fans should know?
Wow. I think in my more recent past, I have to go to Chris Runco. I mean, to me, when I had to go to someone that I felt I could just take a drawing or sketch or even an idea and pass it on to, I knew it was going to come out better on the other end. Chris Runco really understands the story, especially on like the Jungle Cruise doc. That was his work. I mean, that the Jungle Cruise sign, he did that. He to me felt very much like that. Another name or people that are just sort of in that second tier that you don't hear much about was Ed Johnson. Ed Johnson on Disneyland Paris Main Street. As much as we had Susan Cowan and Deb Rager, and I mean, I could name Sandy Mullally and all the different interiors people. Juan Delgado. I named these people in tweets, and I try to continually do that. Ed Johnson was a great influence on me, as I mentioned, in as someone who did not the design you're going to see as the original concept, but making it real. People that made these things real, that understood construction, understood design. And remember, the model shop, as Tony Baxter will tell you, took so many great works and turned them into reality. So the thing you saw built, the draftsman show set guy worked from, came from a model that was interpreted. And those model builders, Ed Johnson worked with Mark Davis, worked with lots of different ones, Harriet Burns, all the different ones in the early generations and many later.
Right. Those are all good names.
Skip Lang is an Imagineer that not that many people know, but was always on the right hand of so many of Tony, that when it came to rock work he was known for, or Jolt, just different ones that really contributed literally the look of an attraction, or would fall on their sword to get a detail in for any one of us. We all had so much help. I want to say that, like film, I think directors are overrated, as I've learned. There's so many people just behind their director. There's a guy called the writer who, comes up with those words the actors are directed to say. Some of these people are underrated. So those are wonderful, wonderful questions.
Well, I totally agree that writers are completely underrated, and everyone out there listening should hire a writer today, because
do you know any? Yeah,
I could put you in touch with some.
We've hired Sotto Studios has hired Michael Crawford proudly as a writer.
I have to say, and you were talking before about the kindness of people, giving people a shot at things, and you certainly did that for me, and I will be forever grateful. So that's a little plug for you in there.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, remember, we also only hire talented people that can show that they can do the work. And so, because we don't hire many people, we hire consultants actually, but we bring in the very best that we can find for a particular job, and you happen to be the absolute tailor-made perfect person for that particular project. And I couldn't think of anyone better to do it. So
thanks.
There you go.
Thanks. I'll put that in my reel.
We're all paint. It's like an artist's paintbrushes. We're all little tools, and we're good for various things. So I try to be a Swiss Army knife, but it's hard to do that.
Yeah. Well, we always end up by asking people what's next for them. You've talked a little about what's next for you. Is there anything you'd like people to check out? Anything you'd like to plug before we go?
Thank you. I think, as experiential designer, love to do. The things I'd like to do that I'm not doing just yet, that I'd like to do, is I really see reimagining the retail experience in the mall. I think it could use it. I think someone who does that things like an Imagineer or myself does or do would be very useful in that. So I'd like to pursue that. So I've kind of self-developed some concepts to transform big box retail stores that are empty into something far more interesting than that. I do love automotive. It's just out there, and I like working on that. The aircraft stuff and yachts and kind of luxury. I've had some good opportunities to do some work in those areas, and I couldn't be more happier working with Virgin Galactic, at least at this juncture, working with them. They're as forward thinking as you could imagine. And Michael Colglazer, coming from Disney, totally gets it. He's an amazing, amazing CEO for them to have. I think everyone's going to be very, very impressed and surprised as he continues in that role.
That's very
So,
cool. I did not know that he was over there. That's interesting.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh yeah. So, and this record, I'm plugging the little record's going to come out, but yeah. So those are a few things that we're doing, and I'm always looking to do more and different. So if you're out there and you want to do something, let me know. We have a super studio, SottoStudios.com has some of our latest work on there, and you can take a look at that and see what fits your needs.
Right. A lot of cool projects, a lot of your appearances and podcasts and blogs, links to everything are on there. And also it's WackySoapboxRacers.com. Is that
Oh,
correct?
yeah. And FutureProofExperiences.com, all one word, Futureproof Experiences, which is all about the work we're doing with terahertz scanning and testing and COVID screening. So you can read all the latest, all the interviews on television and articles and everything on that. So I know that's not the most exciting thing, but frankly, it's the most powerful thing that you could ever. I'm just surprised the industry isn't. Why plan the new ride when you have to wear a mask to go on it? Let's solve this thing. And I've had people call me and just join and say, I'm a computer scientist. I want to be a part of this. What can I do? So we put together a great deal of doctors and physicists and scientists and computer programmers doing simulations of theme parks. We've actually simulated Disneyland masked and maskless with super spreading.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We have agent-based simulation, which means every single person does something different. It's not some bogus thing. This is the most intelligent simulation you can do. Disney does it, but we can do that for other parks or even stadiums.
Oh, wow.
So it's
Well,
exciting.
Interesting. All right. Well, everybody can check that out.
There you go.
Check it out. And man, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, and thank you for patronizing Shrunken Ed, the only self-service Imagineer. Of course, he is. And we really thank you for your kind patience in listening to this drivel that Mr. Sotto has been pushing out. Yes. Well, and this has probably been one of the dullest interviews I've ever had to sit through. What do you think? What do you think there, Card?
All right, so that wraps up our two-part interview with Eddie Sotto. Michael, some great ideas, some food for thought there at the end, some stuff to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. This is why I wanted to talk to Eddie, because you always get a unique perspective on things, and I enjoy hearing him talk about themed entertainment, and I think he has a very unique outlook. So I would encourage everyone to visit his website, SottoStudios.com. He's done many interviews, as I've said. He's done articles. He's written a lot, and you can get a look at his projects. I feel like he's a guy who's interested in the same kind of things we are, and a lot of really cool work has been done by him. So check it out.
Yeah, we wish him the best in his new ventures. They sound exciting. He's inspired me to think wilder, He seems to really want to push the boundaries, so it's very inspirational.
Yeah.
We'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting us. One of the best ways to do that is via our Patreon, which is at patreon.com/ProgressCityUSA. We really appreciate all of you who have donated. And we hope you're enjoying our live streams that happen at the end of the month. And Michael, we had our first questions for the interview. Someone took us up on that. So you can just see the perks from the Patreon falling in.
Exactly. Benefits left and right. You can help us shape the content going forward and get in some questions for some real creative legends. So check it out.
We will all celebrate the future hand in hand. And remember the magic all at the same time. Before we get to what's next, I'd like to remind everybody that they can get in touch with us by emailing podcast@progresscityusa.com. And, of course, Twitter, you're at ProgressCityUSA. I'm at Jeff G. Crawford. We love hearing from people, and we encourage people to rate and review us on your podcast platform. Any rating, any kind of comment, any kind of email, any kind of Patreon subscription. Every little bit helps us continue doing this. It's very encouraging. So thank you all for those who have done it. And now we're ready to talk next month. Michael, where do we go next month?
Well, next month we're breaking out the pixie dust and heading straight into Fantasyland, the most magical kingdom of all.
Walking right down the middle of Cinderella's castle.
Exactly.
Into Fantasyland. Yeah, man, Fantasyland, special place. It's, it's the happiest land of them all. And home to so many legendary attractions. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Our first, fully loaded land, if you will.
Exactly. Lots to talk about in Fantasyland.
A lot to talk about. So stay tuned for that. And, I wonder who will get to talk about Fantasyland. You're just going to have to wait and see. But until then, we'll see you actually pretty soon. Since this was part 2 episode, we'll see you quite soon. Next month for our Fantasyland episodes. And until then, hope you all take care. We'll see you soon.